Looking for wisdom you can trust. Welcome to The Judge Speaks with retired Judge Hubert Grimes, a place for real conversations about faith, family, leadership, law, community, and the decisions that shape our lives. Every Tuesday at 12 noon on Daytona's favorite station, WAIG JOY 106.3 FM, Daytona Beach, Florida. Real conversations, real wisdom, real solutions. And now, The Judge Speaks with retired Judge Hubert Grimes. Tune in, be encouraged, be inspired.
And here we are. Thank God for all of you. Of course, we always love that song, Order My Steps, Lord, because, you know, every day we get up, it's a new opportunity for us to move forward with our lives. But we don't want to be out of order. We want to be in order. We want to ask God to help us, to guide us, because every day is a day of grace. Every day is a day of opportunity to continue to move forward and do something positive. Good afternoon, everyone. Of course, this is Hubert Grimes from The Judge Speaks, retired circuit judge here in Volusia, Flagler, St. Johns, Putnam counties, after service of some 25 years to the people of this circuit. And we are so grateful that you are with us here. We're in a new capacity, of course, and we've been now doing this particular show now for over a year. And it's been by the grace of God again, so which is why that particular song is so special to me, Order My Steps. It reminds me of the fact that I couldn't have gotten to where I was, couldn't have experienced the grace of life itself without the steps of Almighty God, but without God ordering my steps. So thank you. We're going to talk a lot today about some positive things. As we quite understand, Joy 106.3 FM is has a double purpose. One is inspiration. You get that through the music that you hear, and the words of inspiration that come through this radio station. And secondly, information to help you live a better life, to help you deal with the challenges that we find ourselves doing in, particularly during this time and season in this country, in this world. So we're grateful, and we do our best to try to dive in and try to share information that we believe is relevant, that we believe will help you in your daily walk. So this is, of course, the month of August, and we've got a couple things starting to happen, big things happening. You know, August is the 8th month of the year, and in the context of activity, 8 is the number of new beginnings. You know, the first seven is completion, 8 is new beginnings. So August represents the 8th month, and we are excited about what that means. Now, on some levels, there are two things in particular that we want to point out to you as part of the 8th month. And that is, of course, that the 8th month represents the beginning of school year. Here in Florida, and particularly in Volusia County, kids went back to school yesterday. And so after what appeared to me to be a pretty quick summer, it was I know for me, I was very active throughout the summer, had a number of different activities, different things dealing with, and now of course kids are back in school. So for those of you that are out there driving, hey, be safe, watch out for them, as some of them are young, and you know they can sometimes dash out across the street before you realize it. So make sure you're very careful in the school zones that you encounter. You know, in fact, several of our not only counties but surrounding counties have adopted some additional protections for students. We know a lot of them are riding e-bikes now, and the e-bikes have created, on the one hand, they created some great conveniences, but on the other hand, they've also created some particular dangers. And so you see kids on e-bikes, there are a lot of people on e-bikes, but they are subject to the same rules of the road, believe it or not, as what the motorcyclists and others who are out there, even cars. And now I know somebody immediately going to say, well, under statute, you know, they don't rise up to 50 cc's. Well, that part is correct. But therefore, it's a lot of legislation, ordinances that are being proposed to try to help make sure that they conduct themselves in a safe manner. We saw some video clips from a couple weekends ago down in Orlando, and man, they almost had like I guess it was a convention of e-bike riders. but they were going through the downtown streets of Orlando, ignoring traffic lights. Some even got in the way of an evac that lights was flashing. And so, if you're out there and you're riding an e-bike, or if you got your kids that are riding e-bikes, make sure they operate the e-bike safe and sound. Nobody wants to take that joy away from them. But on the other hand, don't make themselves a potential martyr for an accident, because if God forbid, if any person strikes one of these kids on an e-bike, they will probably have a long time before they could forgive themselves. So rather than creating that kind of problem, just be careful and tell your kids to make sure that they are as well. The other thing and of course, as part of going back to school, we know that Volusia County got an A for its school district this past year. And so that speaks volumes of the work of Dr. B, the school superintendent, and of course her team, because she can't do it alone. But Dr. Carmen Baglavan has been now with us. I believe we're getting into 4 years now, and we are so happy that she's here. Hopefully we can hold on to her for a long time. There's been major progress in our school system, and we need even more. But we need your support. So a number of fraternities, sororities were present at the first day of school on Monday at a variety of the schools in the 32114 area. So the Alphas, the Qs, the Kappas, the AKAs, the Deltas, the Zetas, Sigmas, all of them were at some place stationed in and around the various schools here in the 32114 area. And so we're glad, because that show is a show of support and an offer for helping our students to make sure that they get their learning, that they get their tutoring as need be. And then a number of people from Bethune-Cookman, both athletes as well as administrators. And shout out also to Dr. Albert Mosley and his team, who also visited some of the schools. And of course, we know the second part of this whole education piece is that this represents Freshman Week at Bethune-Cookman. They had this past weekend, a lot of parents brought their young kids in to get them enrolled and get them housed, and all of those things that will start their college career. And so it's a great time and a great opportunity, exciting time. And I think I was told that some folks saw Dr. Mosey helping people with carrying some boxes into the dorm room. And, that's just the kind of guy that he is. So shout out to Dr. Mosley and to his team, and we pray you're going to have a highly successful school year and that the best is yet to come. So shout out there and keep going. Now, in addition to that, this is also, which sets the stage for us and our guest for today, this is the beginning in Florida of election season in Florida. In fact, we have the primaries coming up on August 18th, which is just next week, a week from today. And it's so important that we're going to be talking about that to our guest today, because he brought some very interesting information to my attention, which I'm deeply concerned about. And once I get into the details of it that we're going to share, I know you'll be as well, because I know I've got listeners out there that I run into in various places, in the 7-Elevens, at the gas stations, in the malls, in restaurants, and you tell me that you are listening to our show, but you choose not to want to call in. Well, that's okay. That's your right. But I'm glad to know that you're listening. And I pray that you're not only listening, but you're taking action based on the information that's being shared. And so we're going to talk about the importance of voting. And what is the impact of voting? We're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. Today also we have about 5 days left for early voting. It started this past weekend, goes until this coming weekend, and that gives you an opportunity to go out and vote early without the long lines and without all of the challenges that you might otherwise have. And, we live in Florida, y'all. We never know what the weather's going to be like, particularly in the summertime. We hope that it's going to be nice and clear, even though it's going to be hot. But we also want to make sure that there's no rain going on, because rain can be a damper. And we have seen on many election days where we've had deluges of rain. There have even been some seasons where we were dealt with tropical storms, even up to the point of hurricanes. So rather than risk that there may be a problem with that, let's make sure that we get out and vote early. So I'm going to talk about that in just a few moments. But again, August is a great time. Now I know there's some football lovers out there in the audience too, and this is also the beginning of football season. Some of the young people have already started back. Most of them have. The colleges and even the pros, high schools as well, have already started working out. Most of them worked out over the summer. There was no real break from that, but they are back in session, and we're going to have some upcoming interviews here over the next few weeks. I've already talked with the Coach Woody, the head coach of Bethune-Cookman's football team, and they made drastic improvement last year. They're looking forward to continued improvements this year, and talked with him on Sunday when he brought all of his team to church on Sunday over at Allen, and it was Family and Friends Day. And again, shout out to Pastor Lake and his wife, Dr. Paula Lake, for hosting a great Family and Friends Day. And as stated, it was indeed a large, I think he said he had 125 members of the team, and those guys, they look good. They look good. I mean, from small to large, from short to tall. So hopefully they're going to show forth a great season here. And, Bethune was actually ranked in the top HBCU preseason poll. Believe it or not, the smallest team in the smallest school in the SWAC conference, but they were ranked actually, I believe we came in at number 9 of all HBCUs in terms of the where we rank overall. So that means we must be playing, we always have been boxing over our heads. We've always been smaller than all the other schools that we played. Very few schools that we play are smaller than Bethune-Cookman. So it's going to be amazing. And so I want to get Coach Woody in here prior to the start of the first game. First game is against UCF, and that's not long from now. So stay tuned. We'll be bringing him in, and he'll talk about the upcoming season and what he anticipates is going to occur. Well, without further ado, I got a very busy man here with us this afternoon, and we're going to see if we can get him situated here and bring you over so we can make sure we get you there in the full view of the camera, and you'll be able to talk right there. And we're just glad to have someone that many of you have heard that name many times before. He certainly is a good friend of mine, and I actually brought him in at the last minute because he was telling me I was talking with him on yesterday, and I actually even changed up my format for today because I was deeply concerned about some of the data that he shared with us. Again, you guys know my position on education. Education is the key to being and staying free. And so you got to know information. Too many people stick their heads in the sand and try to ignore information, or they choose not to look at the news. I've heard people even say, I don't like watching the news because it's so negative. Well, if you don't watch the news, guess what? The news is going to be watching you. And I always say that it's so important for us. If you want to lead, you need to read. You need to read in order to lead. That's important. So keep yourself educated in everything that you do so that you can indeed be a difference maker. So for here on The Judge Speaks this afternoon, I want to welcome to the show none other than Mr. Steve Miller, my dear friend from Polk County days. We represented the Polk County boys, as some folks came to call us. Some people had some other nicknames too, but they were all good because we came here not knowing that the other one was going to be coming here. But after we got here, it has been our desire for the last 40 plus years to do our best to try to make a difference here, a positive difference here in this community. So welcome to the Judge Speaks there, Mr. Miller. We want to get a chance to talk with you today, and I know that you are heavily involved in your own campaign, and thanks for taking time out of your campaigning to come and talk to us, particularly about the whole issue of voting and how so far the data does not look good for the 32114 area. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, my dear friend. I can't think of a better place to be at this particular time. And yes, I'm running for Daytona Beach City Commissioner, Zone 3, which consists of the heart of Daytona Beach, the heart of Midtown, and the heart of the beachside community. So it's a very diverse community, and we have some wealthy people there, and we have a whole lot of poor folks there.
So you got the whole shebang.
And we have quite a number of homeless individuals and a whole lot of stray cats.
Stray cats?
Yeah, it's a lot of cats on the beach side. I can't believe it. We got these cat lovers that a lot of them feed cats. As I was knocking on doors, it seemed like every other or every third house they got food out for the cats.
Interesting. So we are a pet loving community, eh?
Absolutely.
Wow. All right. Well, you know, I'm gonna circle back around and talk a little bit about your what you're doing in your campaign, and really talk about some of your service that has occurred, you know, down through the years. Because, for example, for those of you that may not know, you all have heard us say this. This is nothing new. Steve was my campaign manager when I ran for judge way back in 1988. And if you all can, those of you that are our age, older, or remember that time, that was the campaign really stepped out on faith, because there were those who told us many times that Volusia County would never elect a black judge, a black man to that position. Well, God said, I told him, it's the first time for everything. And God gave us favor. And indeed, we were elected, and we went on to serve some 11 years. But quite honestly, I could not have done it without Steve. Steve was my right hand. I mean, we literally many times found ourselves out there digging the holes to put up the signs, and, you know, doing all the stuff that was necessary in order to make it happen. And then that particular campaign didn't just end in August. It went all the way to November, which really I came in second in the August primary. But then by the time, I mean, we kept working, and November we turned around and we beat out, in the runoff we won by 10 points. So, but again, I want to publicly say thank you for all of your work that you did for helping me, and the work you did over the years, because you yourself have been very involved in this community. I was just looking at my email 2 nights ago, and I saw that, but I didn't see it until a little late though. But you had you're constantly having the Midtown meetings,
Yes.
Midtown Neighborhood Watch, and that's all designed. You're the president of that watch group, and you're always bringing people in to tell your residents the good things that's going on, or how to solve some of the problems that they may have. So there's no doubt you've served as city commissioner before. You've been actively involved in a number of campaigns here on behalf of helping other people to run for office, to get elected to office. You've been very much involved with the whole political framework, and I just have to throw this in before which gives rise to these numbers that I'm concerned about. It took me back to my college days when I had a professor that used to tell us, I was a political science major, and he told us, he said, politics boils down to who gets what and how much. If we translate that to today's times, who are the people that are getting the people who elect folks to lead whatever level it might be, city commission, school board, county council, all the way up the ladder, all the way up the state rep, state senator, all the way up to the ladder. People that you put people in position who are going to make decisions about the allocation of resources, who gets what, and how much do they get. So with that being said, sir, talk to us about what you and I were talking about just yesterday about the data of what's happening with the early voting
here in Volusia County, particularly in 32114?
I was telling you that Zone 5 and Zone 3 has a minority district is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, believe it or not, we have about 2,775 blacks in the mainland side that qualified to vote in primary election. In fact, we did some research and went back for 10 elections, and it has some very disturbing facts. And the fact is that of the 2,892 who can vote, 2,201 individuals have never voted in the primary election.
Wait a minute, hold on. Say that again.
Of the 2,892 individuals, 2,201 have never voted in a primary election, period.
That's hard to swallow.
And that's 76% of black folks on the mainland side do not vote in primary elections.
Now, does that number change in runoff elections,
Well,
to your knowledge?
the number's going to even get worse than a runoff. But at the primary election, 76% of us do not show up.
And you said have never voted,
Never voted, ever.
although they're eligible to vote.
They're eligible to vote. In fact, believe it or not, in the 10 years that we studied, only 3 blacks voted in every election. 195 voted 51 to 99% of the time, and 50% or less for 193. So, and 2,201 have never voted. So those are some very real serious problems. And of course, we have a lot of need in our neighborhood. And by the way, it's a 3-man race because it's a primary. And the person who get 1,000 votes, if they get in the primary, they will be elected to commissioner of Zone 3 in the primary, not even thinking about the general election.
Wow. Well, you know, it's really a hard pill to swallow. And I hope that some of you that are, I hope all of you that are listening to this show will consider what he just said. Once again, 73% of
76%.
76% of eligible. Now, these are people that
Registered.
they don't have a problem. They're registered.
Right.
They're registered to vote,
But they don't go out and
but they don't go out and vote.
and have never voted.
I don't-
Of that 2,892, 2,201 have never voted in the primary election. And it's the most important election of them all.
Correct.
Because it determines who's going to be running in the general election.
It's hard for me to swallow, and that's why when we were talking about this, and we actually talked about something else, but then when you brought this up, you had just got this data, and that's when I said, we got to educate our people.
Well,
It doesn't.
I got some more disturbing news for you. Normally, the first Sunday of early voting, we call it Souls to the Poll.
Right.
This year, we did not have anyone show up for souls in the polls from our neighborhood. The Minister League, or whatever they call it, a group, never said one word to the congregation about souls to the polls. And after the Sunday church service, they used to all come to the polls and vote.
Yeah.
Well, this Sunday, not one person showed up at the vote. In fact, a couple of years ago, when we had a election, there was 200 students from Cookman marched to the polls.
Mm-hmm.
And of the 200, only 37 voted. But they look good marching down the road to the polls. So we like to look good. We're just not producing anything. Look good and not going anywhere.
That's
And of course, and I'm
troubling.
mentioning Cookman because it's the institution of higher learning. And this is what we call it, the talented 10, Hubert, that we studied back in the days. And those are the ones who are going to really be the cream of the crop in our community. When only 37 of the 200 go to vote, we don't have too much cream in that milk in that particular glass or cup. It is a major problem. Hey, but you have to do what you have. So if 100 people go out to vote, you just better hope that you got 50 plus 1% of that vote, and that way you can win in the primary. And currently, oh, by the way, the first day of voting, and we have 2 voting headquarters here in Daytona Beach, the Cherry Center and the Public Library. So from August the 8th through the 15th, we call that early voting. And from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock every day for that period of time, we have early voting. The first day in Midtown at the Cherry Center, 58 people went out to vote. The second day, which was what we call Souls to the Polls Sunday, 52 went out. And we did better yesterday because 95 people from our community went out and voted. And not from our community, the people that's on the mainland side. That's Caucasians and Mexicans and Puerto Ricans and all the other folks. Only 95 went out to vote.
Wow. You know, we hear a lot about people talking about on some media, talking about how this midterm election presents an opportunity for the Democrats to take back the House, possibly the Senate, try to make changes in what the Trump administration is proposing. Well,
of what they have
like,
already done when they passed that big, beautiful bill, they call it.
Yeah, that's what he called it, right?
Right.
But we know it's not. It might be big, but it ain't beautiful.
That's true.
But what's interesting here is that I question whether or not the proof is going to be in the pudding. Will people really go out and vote? I mean, there's a lot of talk on television about who's going to do what and how people are going to vote. They're going to turn this thing around, that there's a blue wave coming. But the question really boils down to, it's sad. Are they going to really vote? Are they going to really vote? Why aren't you voting?
I was in Wawa this morning, and I saw the security guard, a young 24-year-old black female. And I said, "Hey, my name is Steve Miller. Here's my card. I'm running for City Commissioner Zone 3. And she said, "I don't vote." I said, "Well, why you don't vote?" She said, "They don't do nothing for me." I said, "Well, where do you live?" She said, Pine Haven. I said, "Did you get food stamps?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Well, you know that Donald Trump just cut some of the monies that they give to SNAP benefits."
Yes.
And she said she don't care. She gets hers, and that's all that matters to her. And that they're not giving me anything more than they give anybody else, so why should I vote? And that's the mentality that I'm finding out from our folks that I've been talking to. And the older folks, they're still voting, but a lot of young folks don't see the value of voting, and that's unfortunately because, the strides that we've made at the race came because of our power at the polling place.
That brings up another side to this issue, and I was listening to a different radio discussion, and they were talking about, again, looking at the data, and they were saying that of the people that do vote, most of them are quote unquote what the young people say, them old folks.
That's right.
And I guess they talking about us.
That's true.
We're in that old folks category, as they would say. But the reality is, I remember being, I guess started getting involved with politics when my mother would take me with her to community meetings when I was a kid. And then later on, I remember in 1972 when I turned 19, I got a chance to be in I think it was then the McGovern campaign, way back then. And, I've continued to be involved in, before my own election, I remember being involved in Jimmy Carter's campaign, in Andy Young's campaign. I was living in Atlanta at the time, very active in those things. And then, of course, throughout the years, have continued to be involved even up to and including my own. So what I realize is that there's if you had to draw a big line down the center, it seems like there's a big drop off between what we call folks who are, if you want to say old folks, those of us who are called old folks, who do see the importance of voting versus the young people who say, oh, forget it, I'm going to get my own. But they don't realize that getting their own has a lot of tentacles that come with it. You know, we didn't get to, you know, voting was the thing that got us the Voting Rights Act, you know, because of having the right people in office at the federal level. Voting got us the Civil Rights Act. Those things are being wiped out now. So even all the progress that was made, housing, education, those things that were being, the progress that was made are now being wiped out. And so the only way to change that is by who you put in office at every level, local, state, national. And to say that there's a line of demarcation where young people are saying voting is not important, it's not relevant, none of that. Okay.
And something else here, I want to be able to tell you, it's not just black folks who are not voting.
Yeah.
I'm saying the entire district. You know, there is 8,137 individuals in Zone 3. And believe it or not, 5,676 of them have never voted in the primary. And that's like 69%, 69.78% of the people in the zone have never voted in a primary. So that tells you that very few votes can win in a primary. And we have better shots of winning in the primary than we do in a general election because of that fight. However, if we don't go out and vote, it guarantees that you're never going to win anything.
You can't win if you don't play.
That's right.
You know, and I know some of you are already out there saying, man, but I'm not registered to vote. I never registered. Well, of course, if you haven't registered for this particular, voting opportunity, it doesn't mean that you can't register for the general election.
That's so. The polls closed 20 days before. Well, in fact, the last primary, it was July 20th. You could register until July 20th and still be able to vote in the primary.
So just about a month or so
Absolutely,
prior to
before
the election. So you can actually go down there to the supervisor's election office and you can register now.
Absolutely.
But you won't be eligible to vote until the general election, which comes up in November. And that's going to be a big election, not only here in Florida, but all throughout the country. You know, you hear people talking about whether, you hear people complaining about, oh, Donald Trump did this, Donald Trump did that. And on the other hand, you hear people saying, well, I like what Donald Trump did. But either way, people got to go out and vote because it goes back to law school days, Baker versus Carr. One man, one vote. Everybody's eligible. The idea is that everybody should take advantage of their one vote opportunity. So your vote is no different than mine, okay? But if I vote and this person does not, then I'm the one that's winning. It's just like in football, okay? If I score 2 points on a safety and the other team doesn't score any at all, 2-0 still is a W.
That's true.
It's still a W. So I don't know how we can continue to pour it into young people's minds that voting is important because that's how you get financial aid.
That's true.
By decisions that are made. Again, who gets what?
That's right.
And how much? Well, they're messing with financial aid. I heard this morning again that come this next term around, Mike Johnson said they want to start dealing with Social Security benefits and how they're going to adjust those. Well, again, young people might say that, well, they don't have to worry about Social Security for a long time to come. But the reality is that if you don't deal with it now, then it may not be there for you to deal with later on.
Hubert, and when I look at the situation here in our community, and we're fortunate to be in Daytona Beach because we have 3 African Americans on our city commission. But in the county, we have not one representative
who looks like you or I.
That, in fact, there's not even a woman on the county council. The school board, there's not a black on the school board. The public defender, the private public defender, the public defender, the state attorney, they're all Republicans. The state House of Representatives, the state senator, the U.S. congressman, of course we know the president. So we haven't won the race other than the races in Daytona Beach of people of color, however, in this county for the last 5 or 6 years,
Maybe even further back.
or further back than that.
Mm.
And that because we don't vote. We have enough individuals in our district, in our neighborhoods, to win almost all these county. We can make decisions on the county, the city, and every race that we're a part of in this community if we vote. But again, the older people vote because they fought for the right to vote.
Absolutely.
And the young kids don't remember that because they don't know that. And if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it, is what
Right.
I used to hear.
Right.
And so they don't vote, and they feel like, why should they?
And you know, I remember when you talk about that, I got my daughter and son started with voting because I used to take them to the booth with me, and they would be standing down at my kneecaps, you know, while I'm voting, and I tell them why I'm voting. I'm voting because it's really, for the long run, it's voting for their future. And well, we're going to take a short pause, and we'll be coming back, and we're going to continue. We're good? Okay. All right. I'm told by our board man here, who's a young man, and I'm glad that he can be with us here. He's growing. He's a college student, got a bright future, and hopefully he'll influence some of his friends to remember this particular lesson today in terms of how do you go about changing situations. You know,
And one thing, what's at stake in this particular election? Well, a couple of months ago, there was a vote on the city commissioner. One of our commissioners made a motion to terminate the city manager, and his name is Derek Fieger, our first African-American city manager in the history of, in the 150 years of Daytona Beach. So it was a 4-3 vote. So 4 people said, no, we're not going to terminate him, but 3. So if one individual, one vote change, then we can lose our city manager. You know, we're thrilled to say that we have a black city manager, a black police chief. We got a black mayor, but that could change in one election. One election, and every time the commissions meet, we are subject to losing our city manager, because anybody can call for the question on him, and if they get a second and put it on the floor, and 4 people decide that he's not doing what they think he should be doing, he will be out of here.
wow. Well, it wouldn't be good. Let's put it this way: he would land on his feet,
Of course,
but the people of Daytona Beach
right.
would not.
We have to pay out. We have to pay out that nice contract that he has, and
yeah.
he's one of the highest paid city managers in the state of Florida. And I'm very proud of the fact that somebody in our neighborhood can make that kind of money.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that, because in a lot of the particular positions, high-profile positions like that, you're now seeing that, for example, school board, school superintendent positions are coming open, and because it's getting to be a struggle to figure out how you're going to balance budgets, particularly when they're talking about further cutting. Now, fortunately, there's a piece that
Proposition 3.
right, but it got removed from the ballot.
Oh, it did.
The judge ruled up in Tallahassee last week that it failed to comply with the, and I'll use this term, the simplicity rule, because that thing was going to, you know, supposedly was going to take out property taxes. Although it was going to gradually do it, but it would be within literally in 3 years, property taxes would be no more in Florida. If the people voted, they would have to have a 60%.
And that means
vote.
that the people who live in mansions would pay 0 property taxes.
How about
and
that?
that was what it was all about. It wasn't about the small individuals who
Right.
live in 150,000, because it was going to exempt them automatically anyhow. But it was the people who paying a lot of property taxes, and those folks who are just supportive of the party that's in power. And of course, that means that where the money coming from? Police protection,
How about that?
fire department, and all those essential services. And so what will get cut out? Parks and recreation for our children, our senior programs, and we have an awesome senior Oasis program in the city of Daytona Beach. I think we have maybe 4 or 5 different locations you can go and have a good time with the people that you grew up with. But if Proposition 3 would have gotten on the ballot and passed, that means those programs would have most likely been the ones that cut.
The judge ruled that the language of the proposed constitutional amendment was very confusing, and he said it sounded almost like a political statement as opposed to a law. And so he wrote an extensive order, and they in fact declared it to be unconstitutional. I was waiting to see whether or not the governor and his team were going to appeal the decision, but from what I understand is that they stated that they were not. Now they still got some time left, within which to do so. Normally you get 10 days within to ask for a new trial, 30 days in order to appeal it to the next level. But in this case here, I understand that they said that they were not, which means they'll probably defer that to some point down the road in a subsequent legislature, try to bring it back if they choose. But this was something that our existing governor had been pushing for, and so since he's going to be gone at the end of this year, it'll be up to the next folks to decide if they want to even bring it back. But there's already been efforts by many local communities and governments, both city, county, school boards. They were already looking at what would happen if those funds that come from property taxes were eliminated. There were going to be major layoffs. So you're going to have teachers being laid off. You're going to have people that you had police, fire. Instead of being safe and protected, we would have seen a lot of other problems. Also that the folks at the top can keep money in their pocket. But all of us pay at whatever level that we pay it at for this particular, these services. So again, I'm just glad to read that particular news article. So the other thing that comes to mind that I hope that we can get our citizens who are listening, and I hope that you will, I know this particular show is aired here on Tuesday, but it circles back again on Thursday afternoon during drive time. So I hope I can step on enough toes out there of those of you that have not voted but are eligible to vote, that you'll go out and vote. We're going to probably go over and vote on Wednesday afternoon. That's the day that my wife and I are going to go and do it. I do it every time as much as I can. It's also a good opportunity to see some people I haven't seen in a while.
A lot of people.
In
fact, I met a young lady who said that she started her law services or career as a prosecutor in your chamber, and now she's running for a circuit court judge.
How about that?
And do you know what she said to me? She said, I had no clue how big the circuit was. The 7th Judicial Circuit is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, 3 or 4 counties?
4 counties.
Okay, what are they?
Volusia, Flagler, St. John's, and Putnam.
You got it right.
That's a lot of area.
That's
right.
a lot of area.
Yeah.
In fact, they're bigger than 2 or 3 states.
Yeah. We're bigger than the whole state of Rhode Island.
That's right.
And I think also Delaware.
That's true.
That's a lot of miles, I'm telling you. And Jeannie Stratus, and I'm supportive of her. She was indeed my prosecutor for several years. And as she said, she learned a lot being in court. I hope that we have had an impact on her life, and maybe that was part of the inspiration for why she's running for circuit judge now. She didn't tell me that, but she always says she wanted to.
She told me that something, what she learned too was something else outside of the law, that you also need to have a great bailiff like Hubert had by Jose. What was his name? Jose?
Jose Diaz. Yes.
He said, I remember
this. He and
Chris kid tried to jump jump over there to grab the judge, and Jose grabbed him and slammed him against the wall and said, "It's a dent in the wall even to this day." She literally said, "Steve, the dent is still in the wall at the courthouse."
Yeah, I had 2 great bailiffs, man, both Jose and Christy. And look, one was tall, one was short. One was black and one was white. One was male, one was female. Okay. But I tell you what, they managed that courtroom for me. They really did. And it's always amazing. We used to always laugh because Jeannie and Christy, my bailiff, they're about the same height, okay? But it's always funny because when I look up and see how Christy would be putting her finger in the face of somebody that's 6'4", and she's only like 5'2" herself, And she would be telling them what's going to happen. Now, you're going to either go out, you're going to respect my judge, or you're going to go out that door over there. Do you have any problem with that? And all Jose would be doing would be standing over the corner waiting, say, okay, no problem. We can take them out this door. So, again, one of the successes.
After they throw them against the wall 3 or 4 times.
You got to do what you got to do to protect yourself. So, yeah, there were a few instances where kids did try to attack the bench, but we didn't have a problem. We didn't have a problem.
How many of your goddaughters now that are judges
Oh
in
my
Volusia
gosh!
here?
Well,
In the state of Florida.
in the state of Florida, I don't even know. I've mentored quite a few, but not only through here, but through my work at FAMU, at the law school. And I remember one that stands out. Of course, Joan Anthony was one of my mentees for a long time. Alicia Washington as well. Alicia worked in the public defender's office, and she also used to come to court in front of me. She worked in front of me as well. She later worked at the state attorney's office, and then finally she and Joan both got elected back in 2020.
Same year.
Yeah, and they covered the same circuit.
And they won. And well, of course, they all win in the primary for judges. Whoever get the most votes win.
Yeah. So it really worked out. But I'm gonna tell you that that's a great job, great position. You have a lot of power that you can change lives. And one of the things I still admire and remember about my own days there, where I still get people coming up to me, whether it's in the 7-Eleven or in the gas station or any place, many other places, and I saw a young man at the courthouse last week, and he told me, he grabbed my hand, shook it, and said, "Thank you, Judge. I just want to tell you thank you. You locked me up quite a few times, and I didn't want to learn, but in the end, you won. You were right, and I want to tell you thank you because you helped change my life."
I met the president of a Republican who's the president of the state of Florida, birthplace of speed, assembly of the Republican Party.
Okay.
And he said, when you see your friend Judge Grimes, tell him I said thank you. I said, well, what am I going to tell him thank you for? He said, well, I was an alcoholic and I got in a lot of troubles at that time, and he sent me away to dry out for about 7 or 8 months. And he said, and it changed my life. In fact, if the judge hadn't sent me away, I'd probably be dead now.
Wow.
And he said, tell Hubert, thank you for saving my life.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's good work, and you have to approach it with that mindset that you're there to help. You're there to serve. I mean, you're running for city commission is not about because you expect to make a whole bunch of money, or that you expect. I mean, you've done all that stuff. I mean, you got your own practice, you got your own business, you've had multiple businesses over you. You're doing it to do what? To serve. And if you come in, no matter what that position is, with the mindset that you're there to serve, to help people, then it's a different mindset from those who are going in. And I see these advertisements on television now, and they're talking about, it used to be drain the swamp. Right. Now it's something about, we're going to go in, and you see the guys up there with their guns. It's almost like you're going to go in and shoot people? You're going to go in and hurt people? And that's why you're running for office? We got to finish the job. Well, what job are you trying to finish? Service never ends.
I can remember that day you told me that we was thinking about running for judge, and I called you and said, what time we going to do this? And you went on to tell me about all the people who told you no, they're not going to do that.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
I think even a spouse said you need to get your own life right.
Right.
And
she did back then.
The Holy Spirit, I prayed, and the Lord said, no. I said, Hubert, the answer from the Holy Spirit is yes, yes, and amen. But I have a question for you. If you was judge, would you do right by God's people?
You asked me that question.
And your response was what?
Steve, why do you even ask me that question?
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm going to do right by God's people.
That was exactly what you said. And
I will always remember. That was my defining
I said, Hubert,
purpose.
You told me that you don't even have to be a judge to run for a lawyer to be run for judge. If the people elect you, he said, but you have the credentials, so you have everything you need, and you had a whole lot of faith.
Yeah, it took a lot of faith,
and that's what the difference was.
It took a lot of faith. And what's interesting, because during the course of my time on the bench, I got a chance to teach other judges. And when you mentioned about you don't even have to have a degree, there are states out here where you don't even have to have a law degree to be a judge. And I met people like that, people that have been school counselors or police officers, but those little small towns out in the West, like in Montana and Wyoming and things like that, they brought a different perspective. But when you have been through the hurdles of the law and learning the law and being tested by it, you get to the point of understanding that it's here that you're supposed to be about trying to help people. You're trying to help people. I mean, if you're going with the mindset that you're there to just lock up everybody, I can assure you that that's a short-term career.
But I know this call about to come to an end, but I want to also give a shout out to my dear friend Willie Williams, who's running from Zone 5.
Okay.
Danette Henry decided not to run again, so Willie Williams is there. So I'm pleading with all the brothers and sisters, in fact, everybody in Zone 5 to go out and support Willie Williams. I think that our new city manager, who has done a fantastic job, made the city look a lot better. And with Willie Williams and myself on the commission, I'm quite sure that the Midtown will be very, very successful in the future.
And I think that boards another question that some people don't think about. This is a cry, this is a call out to all of you out there that are part of any service organization. Steve was telling me that in certain areas where we got so much homelessness, that there are people where you may see garbage on the side of the road. Well, maybe it's time for those of us who are part of these service groups to start working towards cleaning up our community, having some community cleanup events and activities. It's going on in other communities. And so that's why service, Dr. Richard V. Moore once quoted to me, service is the price we pay for the space we occupy.
Yes, I've heard him say that a lot.
Yep.
And so Hubert, I stand on the corner of Ridgewood and International cleaning up. And believe it or not, it's the dirtiest place, I think, in the city. And I asked those guys, why you throw the trash in your beer cans and your soda bottle, water, soda pops on the ground? They said, well, do you see a garbage can around here? And I realized there's no garbage can there.
It's something simple that can be a simple fix.
Something as simple as that.
Okay.
And I cleaned up because Walgreens is the last pharmacy we have standing. CVS left and went out to LPGA.
Oh,
so I feel like I have to go and clean up the parking lot and go tell the manager, you know what, we really love you guys and we want you to stay here in this neighborhood.
Good. All right, well, we got to take a short pause. You and I have talked so much, we talked past the the commercial break, but we need to do that because we got to pay the bills. So go ahead, we're going to do that, and then we'll come back and wrap up for today.
We've shared the truth, we've shared the wisdom. Now take what you heard and let it make a difference in our homes, in our families, in our communities. There is always something we can do. Keep the faith, stand for what is right, lift someone along the way. This is the Judge Speaks with retired Judge Hubert Grimes. Until next time, tune in, be encouraged, be inspired. The Judge